Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Efren. I'm with the WakeUpX Solutions podcast. And today I have my good friend Mo. As we all know, we know each other from multiple areas. Mo, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, Efren. Really excited to be here. My name's Mo Balakrishnan. We know each other through ISACA. I'm a director at ISACA Sacramento, but also the CTO at Schools Insurance Authority, and just involved in the tech scene and the cybersecurity scene in the Sacramento area, Central Valley. So yeah, that's me. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what is I know you have a background with a CISO, CTOs, and you even have a background. It wasn't even a technical background. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So yeah, I think we talked about in the past. I used to be a physicist. That's how I started my career. I started in physics, and I was doing that for some time, and I decided to make a career shift and move into technology. Really kind of fell into it. I moved to a new city, and that seemed to be the best path for me at the time. And I wasn't really very, let's say, tech savvy, or I was tech savvy, but I wasn't as knowledgeable about corporate systems as I am today when I started. So I kind of had to teach myself all the ropes and kind of educate myself on how to manage corporate systems. I started in IT, and I found quickly that I really love doing this stuff. I went down the rabbit hole and became very interested in technology and how that's playing out. And then eventually found myself moving to the Silicon Valley and hoping to get into a startup, or I worked for very big tech companies at the time, and hoping to one day maybe start my own business or own startup or do something significant. And so that's what brought me to the Silicon Valley initially. And then life happened. I got married and I moved to Sacramento, and that's now where I'm based. So that's kind of the arc of my story. And in between, started to get more and more into cybersecurity and move up the ladder, and eventually became a CISO at a university. And
So
now
let me cut you off right there. I know you started talking about the technology when you started in IT. What type of role did you start when you started in IT?
I was at the bottom of the ladder. I started in desktop support, fixing laptops and things like that. Back then, we used to use these IBM ThinkPads, and they were totally modular. You could just take the keyboard out and the RAM out and everything, and swap them. So that's where I got my start, is at the very bottom of the ladder, learning my ropes there. Yeah.
So it is possible then if you came out from a desktop support to even go into the C level, right? To CISO,
Oh
CTO.
yeah, it's the best trajectory, I think, is to start in desktop support and then eventually work your way up to becoming, the chief technology officer. I think that's the best trajectory, because today I can do every single job in my department. I may run the department, but I can do every single job from desktop support. And sometimes I do, because it's important to keep my skills sharp, and it's important to interact with customers, because desktop support is the front line, and that's where you really make the most impact with your customers on a daily basis. So absolutely.
Yeah, that's something that I know you when I first met you, we had a conversation. It was like, hey, how can I break into cybersecurity? How can I get into cybersecurity? And you told me, well, I'm already at desktop support, pretty much, and a little bit more of that. And you told me, it was like, look, desktop help desk is one of the best areas to start with, move up to networking and move into cybersecurity. And that's something that I took in heart, because I remember you told me that advice. I was like, you know what, he's definitely right. So, from somebody coming out from a network background, from a help desk background, from all type of backgrounds, you pretty much are at there. So that's an amazing accomplishment. Did it take you a long time to start moving up in that career path to the level you're at right now?
Yeah, it is, everybody's journey is unique. I think mine was accelerated, but accelerated because I was exposed to a lot of different things. I happened to be working at a branch office in London, England at the time, for this big company that I work for, and so that gave me a lot of exposure internationally, and also exposure to do projects in multiple countries in Europe, and so that gave me that it was a forcing mechanism that said, well, you can't just be doing desktop anymore. You have to do these other things. There was a requirement for a project manager. There's a requirement to go and deploy technology in these different branch offices around Europe. And so that forcing mechanism made me, well, I had to learn this. I had to learn how to program a switch, how to get into networking, learn more about firewalls and MPLS circuits and all sorts of things that, telephony, VoIP systems, how to route calls, in a business setting and things like that. So, just by the nature of being exposed to as many experiences that could possibly come at me, I was able to elevate my skills very quickly. So as long as you can receive what's coming at you, you can take that and internalize it and improve yourself in remarkable ways. So yeah, I was able to do that and then very quickly accelerate myself. And by the time I arrived in the Silicon Valley, I was, a security engineer doing global projects for this company. So yeah, it was a good journey for me to do that. And what I say to everybody that asks me about that is like, get in front of experiences, never shy away from an experience. If you can learn to program a switch, don't let somebody else do it. Volunteer. Say, hey, can I do that? Or at least be your hands. And if you're remote, you can tell me how to do it, and I'll program it in for you, and you'll learn that way, right? And the same is true of all the new modern technology that we have today.
Yeah, that's true. And I do believe on that. Like something taking all these opportunities. And that's something I've always took the initiative. It was like, I know a lot of people from my teams, they'd be like, oh, well, that's not my role. I should have been doing that. But for me, I look at the opposite side. It's more of like, it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity for me to learn. Like maybe I might not get paid for this. Maybe I'm just volunteering, but it's just an opportunity for me to even just be in there because those opportunities don't come all the time. And it'll just happen once in a while. And it's great to have those opportunities. My career, when I started my IT career, everything was volunteer based. Everything I learned from, I didn't have the certifications. I didn't go to school for that. I didn't go for none of that stuff. I barely had a high school diploma. So at that time, I was just volunteering the whole time. And just that's when I started learning about the help desk aspect of it, understanding help desk, the service desk, and how to repair computers. And that's pretty much that was my, like you just said, I expected my journey from there just because I learned everything from volunteering. And that's what just it just took that opportunity and that's what ended up moving forward. And I know for a lot of people the traditional right now it's just like, okay, go get your bachelor's and they're trying to get some entry level. My advice to everybody, I always tell them is like, hey, volunteer. Volunteer for opportunities, be out there, go to organizations, go to different places that you can help, you can learn from other people. What do you think about that? Do you also agree on that?
I 100% agree with that. What I agree with the most there is there's no one unique path for everybody to get to the end goal. The paths are infinite in the sense that the end goal may be, a point in space, but how you get there is really up to you, right? And it's like whether you went and did a 4-year bachelor's degree or you built your business, just out of high school and made it to where you needed to go. That path is very varied, and it really is depends on what's inside your drive, your motivation, and how clearly you see your end goal. And if you see that end goal, you'll figure out how to get there. And for me, I can't, if I'm being honest, I didn't know exactly what my end goal, and certainly I don't look at where I am today as my end goal. It's not being CTO is not my end goal
Yeah.
in life, right? It's a hobby or a stepping stone in wherever I'll end up, which is still not clear to me. So I think one of the other lessons that I have is don't have this rigid idea of where you need to be, right? As long as you're moving, as long as you feel in your heart that you're moving up and moving to another level and you're making some progress, then it's good. And you can kind of, just like a navigator out at sea through intuition that you're moving in the right direction that, is appropriate for you. And I think that's one of the other lessons is intuition, having that intuition about where you're headed and making sure that you feel like you're on that right track, that right path. And that requires a lot of introspection. It requires a lot of like understanding of what you want in life and being clear about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And I wanted to add in too, because I also was with this small little experience that I had, I also built a business with it. So not all the time do you have to have like a master's of business or anything like that. You can even just have the small experience that you have and just start building a business, have a partnership or something. And that's when I had my computer and software repair shop. And that's when I started moving forward into that. And like you mentioned, some people have different goals, different mindsets, how things go. And there's going to be a lot of failures. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to be
Yeah,
a lot. It's going to be a lot of failures.
absolutely. 100%. You're gonna have to deal with failure, and failure is the wrong word to use. It's an experience. Whether it's good or bad, it's an experience. You learn something from it. If you couch it in terms of failure, you may regress or you may fall back, right? But if you couch it in terms of, well, that was an experience, I learned something from it, and you keep moving forward, then you'll have a different way or a different perspective on the way to deal with them. Yeah. So I try not to couch my failures as failures. I
Yeah.
certainly have a lot of them. I couch them as learning moments, and
Yeah.
and certainly that was more productive for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it is true. It's a learning experience. That's how I look at it too. I wanted to use that failure aspect of it because that's the more of a universal word. I wanted to translate it more as like fail is a learning experience for me. I looked at all these type of failures I looked at it as a learning experience. It may seem like okay, yeah, of course it was discouragement. It was a lot of stuff that was going on. It felt like I wasn't doing anything right, and I feel everybody goes through it.
Everybody goes through that. Yeah, and certainly I have in many aspects of my career felt like I went through that. Like even today, I think, well, there's something that I have inside me in terms of some energy, a creative spirit. Why am I not able to fully realize that? I think that's one of the questions that people have inside them is like, why am I not able to fully realize my creative spirit? And that is I think the art of moving ahead is like figuring out how to let that creative energy out in a controlled way that gets you, to your goal. And that has been the case going back to my early career. And I think the lesson that I've learned is patience, which I didn't have in the past, is patience.
Yeah, very true. I think that
Because,
patience is
yeah,
one of the biggest keys. Definitely,
yeah,
I think that's one of the major keys for success. It's just having the patience. Just because there's so much things going on at once, you have to understand. It's like, okay, you know what? I can't rush everything. I know there's so many shortcuts and there's so many things, and there might be shortcuts for other people, the shortcuts, but those shortcuts doesn't work for everybody. It might just work for one person, but you might have to go through another journey to get that. And that's a perfect mindset. I think I love that what you mentioned. I know you mentioned about not that wasn't your you don't know what's your goal yet, but you're still striving to get more. I know you told me that when you're a CISO, you were striving to do more and more and more. And now I just like the curiosity. Now I know you were a CISO, now you're a CTO. Can you give me an explanation? What was that transition for, and how
sure.
do you see what was the benefit and the downsides of it?
So there are like rational reasons, and then there are like, the to take what you said about the goal, right? So I always use the goal as like people need goals because they need a place to go. They need like a direction to head to. But the goal is not, it doesn't, like when you hit the goal, like if you have the goal and you hit the goal, then where do you go from there, right? So it's kind of a anticlimactic thing to reach your goals. And to me, my experience has told me that it's not about the journey. And I think a lot of people say it's about the journey, right? So you're really, what you're trying to get out of is the experience you're experiencing life, and you're going on a journey, and the career is one of those things, right? It's a journey. And if you look at it that way, you certainly need a goal, and that just helps you psychologically to move in a direction. But really what you're experiencing is the journey. So you asked me, well, I went from CISO to I was a security engineer. Actually, I started in IT. So, I started as a desktop engineer, and then a network engineer, security engineer. Then I became an architect, security architect. Then I became a CISO, right? And headed up a security department. And a lot of people, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be in cybersecurity. A CISO is the highest position in a security organization. So what's next, right? If I said, well, I just want to be a CISO, was anticlimactic, right? If that would be the end of the journey. But really, then I set a new goal, right? Or I naturally set a new goal. And AI, learning more about AI, I'm really not missing the AI goal rush, right? And that was one of the goals. So I'm like, well, It was 2023. I was a CISO at a university, and I'm seeing AI come online, and here I am, a security guy, thinking I want to use AI. I want to get really deep into this, but my job is focused on security. So I'm like looking for every single excuse I can to bring AI into my security field so I can use it, right? But really, what I was fooling myself. What I really wanted to be is a technologist working in AI and improving AI, right? And so I had to figure out how to get there. And so when this opportunity came to become a chief technology officer at an insurance company, they wanted to do big things with AI. I naturally said that's a great place to go. I got to do that, right? And so that was the transition. That was the logic, the rationality behind it. But I think that came after the actual doing of it. But so what was driving me? It was that the journey is driving me, right? So I just needed to set a new goal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not goal oriented, I'm journey oriented. So pretty much
Mhm.
I love the journey because now that I'm thinking about it, it was like, okay, I finished a goal, but what I really fell in love with was the whole journey. So that made me that's a reality check for me. So I mean that's awesome too. I didn't think about that. And it makes a lot of sense when you mentioning about the CTO aspect of it, that you're trying to implement more of the AI. You want to tinker more with the AI. And if you're really, if a lot of people here notice that, like if CISO securities, you're not looking into the technology aspects. You work with technology, but you're looking more into the security. You're trying to defend it, and the AI is part of the more the CTO aspect of it. So it makes a lot more sense. And it's I think it's a good combination for you because you have the security background and you have the technology background. So that gives that good a good balance of both sides. Do you think in these for you having these type of experiences, do you think is an eye opener for these two type of transitions that you had from CISO to CTO?
Yes, for sure. I have a really good foundational perspective about how we should approach technology because of my security background. Because I think about things from a security first perspective. It's one of the mantras that I had when I had this as a CISO. I was like, I wish we would just think about things from a security first perspective. And when we deploy technologies and we deploy anything out into the field, we think about and we budget for the security that has to go with that. And so today, since I'm a CTO, I have that perspective, and I'm very fortunate. And you've had Gustavo on your show, and Gustavo is a good friend of mine, but also my colleague and the CTO or CISO at our company. And so we can work together, and we have this great working relationship because I understand where it's coming from, and sometimes too much because I have to take my security hat off a lot of times and put on my technology hat. That's what my boss tells me. But this understanding of security and a security first mentality helps us in all the systems we're bringing up, because we're bringing up very complex artificial intelligence and data systems, data analytics systems. And not having the security baked in is one of the largest and most prevalent dangers with AI adoption right now today, is just not thinking about security and just rushing forward with implementation of AI in companies, and not having that mindset is really the downfall. And a lot of the CISO's job today is just playing catch up. Somebody introduces some AI tools into an environment, and you just, it's the same story. It's just trying to get control of it. Where in our organization, at least I like to think, we're not just deploying things without consultation with our security team and thinking about, well, how do we do this in a secure way, in a controlled way, in a way that provides business value to our customers and our end users.
No, that's good. And I think that's a bonus for you too, that you have that type of mindset. You understand the CISO aspect of it. You see the CTO aspect of it. So that I know there's something like in other organizations, they bump heads. And I believe that both of you, because I know Gustavo too, is a good friend of mine, also a mentor. Like both of you are my mentors. You guys really
But
really
sure,
took a lot of time.
you got a lot of mentors, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate
Yeah.
that you guys always do a lot for me. And it's and that's something else for everybody else. Find a mentor. Good fight. It doesn't matter how many mentors you have. Look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at it.
100%. Everybody's a mentor. You're a mentor to me. I learned how to be more, communicative and put myself out there. And from watching you and all your podcast videos and things like that, and just the way that you went from, building that podcast to what it is today, it's been great to watch it. And I watched that. I'm like, we got to get this guy to help us do something else. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation that we're having all the time now. So yeah,
Thank you.
it's
Thank you,
great.
man. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. And then I'm telling you guys were the first ones kind of like motivated me to do all this stuff.
Yeah. I
And
love where you are. This is great. Yeah.
yeah. And it's all thanks to you guys too. That's a huge thanks.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, going back, sorry, going back to the conversation, that I believe that you guys having that type of mindset is good to have, and that partnership is good to have. Just because other companies do bump heads, it's like, oh, well, we need to look into the technology aspect. Oh, we need to look into the cyber aspect of it. And both of you have that same combination, that you guys have both a technical background, both have the cybersecurity background, so that makes it to work even easier for you guys. And it's awesome that you guys can work together like that. And it's I did talk to Gustavo. I asked him once. I was like, "Hey man, do you guys bump heads?" He's like, "Nah, man. I think we're good because we both understand our path and how things are going for as a security and the technology aspect of it."
Well, and there are times where we won't necessarily agree on something, but we can have a intellectual conversation about things. We're both speaking the same language, right? We're not talking past each other. And so I think that's very important. And so, yes, it's definitely an asset for our organization to have two people who are kind of on the same wavelength in kind of a technology leadership position. So that's definitely been an asset for us.
Yeah, and that's true. That's awesome. Also, I know you were saying I was your mentor, so appreciate that. And I'm glad that you're taking more initiatives on this stuff like this. I know that we're working on new projects, and this is something that we're going to talk about further in the
Yep.
podcast.
Sure.
So that is something that I'm interested. But I have another question now. So now that we're talking about AI and how things are being implemented, I wanted to pick your brain on this because I've read an article, and also from my perspective, my personal perspective, I was using ChatGPT as one of my coaches. And I had one chat that was getting, I feel like I got overwhelmed or something happened. The context wasn't working anymore. The data, it was really, really slow. So I had to build a new chat. And when I added a new chat, not all the information was there. Do you know why would that happen, or what would be the reason for that to happen?
And this is one of the fundamental problems with the way we use LLMs or AI today, right? And when we talk about AI, generally today we're talking about large language models, right? Like ChatGPT, like Anthropic's Opus or Sonnet, or there's a number of models out there. But what you're talking about there is a context window exhaustion. So like when you're talking about in the first case, you're talking about using a chat to study for the CISSP, and presumably it just got very long and very slow and almost unusable. And then you decide to start a new chat and continue. So two things happened there. First, you exhausted your context window in the first chat. So the LLM has what's called a context window, which is measured in tokens. So generally, by rule of thumb, this is through people's experimentation. The LLM starts to lose coherence. It starts to exhibit decoherence, meaning it loses its script once you get to about 100,000 tokens in length. So that's about, in real world terms, it's 150 pages of information. You can think about your CISO handbook, which is, I think, 800 pages or something, if I recall. 23 chapters, right? It is far larger than 150 pages. And what that means is, if you were to, for example, put your entire PDF of your CISSP handbook into the chat, and then start chatting with it, and then put some more information in there, you're going to exhaust the available context window that is there. So famously today, there's many of the providers say you've got 1 million tokens that you can put in for a context window, but realistically, once you're 100,000 tokens, you start to lose the script. The LLM starts to hallucinate or give you information that's incorrect, and so you naturally then go and start a new chat. And now you've got a different problem. It has context, because every time you start a new chat, In fact, people don't know. Every time you send a new message to an LLM, it has no memory of what it's. So the only reason it remembers your chat is because everything that you have sent prior to that gets copied and pasted onto the top of the message you just sent, and then sent to the LLM. So the LLM has to read the entire chat history again, make sense of everything, look at your new question, and give you an answer, right? That's how LLMs work. They don't have any memory for themselves. So that the LLM itself as a machine or a construct doesn't have any sense of the memory. It has no sense of time and space. So it doesn't have an idea, a temporal reference point. It doesn't know that I'm in the present, there was a past, and there was a future. And it has no way to decide for itself what its goals. You are directing it at all times. And that's kind of the way that we deal with AI today is we direct the AI using our own brain, our own cognitive functions. We actually use an AI kind of like a extension of our own brain without really knowing it. The common interaction with an LLM is that we're chatting to it, we're chatting to somebody, right? But really, we're having an internal monologue with a machine, and we're just extending our brain out and having kind of an internal monologue. And that's a better way and a healthier way to look at the way that we interact with LLMs today. Even though the industry, I'm sure people who sell you AI subscriptions want you to believe that you're talking to Claude or ChatGPT 5.5, or conceptually they have the wrong. It's more of an extension of our own brains than it is another entity that you're talking to. But that's where we want to get to. We want to get to agents, which presumably would be another entity with its own goal, its own memory system, its own ability to keep things straight, like a reference of what's true and what's not true, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not there yet. And so that's one of the things that I've been talking about recently is the dangers of releasing this type of technology and wrapping them up into what we call agents and then releasing them into the wild. They're not ready yet for that. There's a huge technological leap that has to happen before we get there. And we can talk more about it.
Yeah, and that's something that I've seen in these events. They're promoting a lot of the AI, how they're making it seem like they're already stable, and how technology is already out there. AI is the whole solutions for everything, and how it's a big buzzword right now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and you're right now mentioning that it's not ready. So what could be? Are they almost like, how can I say it? Are they more false advertising, or they're just promoting too much, or they're hyping it up too much to the point it's just like, all right, man, we're lying to you, but we just want you to buy our product. What do you think?
I think it's a mixture of a lot of things going on, right? There's this hyper investment in AI technology driven by the large providers and things like that. So there's literally trillions of dollars being flooded into them to kind of implement AI and get mass adoption by people from AI. And so you have to build confidence. You have to tell people that this stuff is ready to go. It's fully baked. It's going to change everybody's life. It's in 3 years. We're going to have artificial general intelligence and all this stuff, right? And I think some people are drinking that Kool-Aid. Definitely, if you go to San Francisco, you see a lot of people drinking that Kool-Aid. I think there are a lot of people who are financially invested in making sure people keep drinking the Kool-Aid. And I think there's a lot of people who are not stopping to kind of think about those things. Yeah, I say that I'm very bullish on AI, and I think it has a lot of promise. But I think what we need to do is kind of slow down and get our conceptual framing correct about AI before we, just like I said about what we do at SIA, right? We think about security first. Before we deploy technology into the field, we think about security first. Well, what are the appropriate security controls that we need to implement it? And you can ask the same question about AI. Well, what are the appropriate controls that you need before you unleash this device or this, whatever is an algorithm, into your environment, into your business environment, into your enterprise, right? I don't think a lot of people are asking that question, because I think the CEOs are asking their technology teams to just go forward and drive forward with AI. And they just think there's going to be some magical productivity gains. But, if you're really looking, we need to start there first. We need to say, well, have we gotten the fundamentals correct? Have we done data governance? Because the AI is going to have access to our data. How is that AI going to have? We just talked about some of the constraints of AI, right? Like, you can only put 150 pages into a working memory of an AI before it starts to lose the script. So, I mean, every business out there has more than 150 pages of data that they have in their databases, right? So how are you going to get all that data and have AI crunch that data in a coherent way and get you, the business outcomes that you're looking for? Who's thinking about those things, right? And even if you could figure out those problems, then, well, who should have access to that data? Like, if you've got an agent working for you, is that agent like an Oracle that has complete access to all your data in your enterprise? Or does that agent have access based on your access relationship with the company, right? So, you may have a certain access level within your company. Should your agent's access level exceed the access level that you have? And if you have that dialed in, then okay, well, then how are you going to implement that? What controls do you have in place to truly implement that capability, right? And if you don't have good answers for those questions, you shouldn't be putting AI into your enterprise, because it's going to be a disaster. It's going to ruin your business. And so I think that's an unpod, or maybe something that Silicon Valley doesn't want everybody to know or hear all the time, because there's this push to get AI adopted in a big way in every business. But certainly that's the discussion being had amongst the cybersecurity professionals that I know. And certainly the technologists are thinking that as well, because they're scratching their heads saying, well, my leadership is telling me to put this stuff in, and I don't have a clue how to do it. So I'll just give everybody a ChatGPT or an Anthropic license and be done with it, right? And that's just a very poor way to do it, and a very lazy way to go about it. So yeah, does that answer the question? I feel like I may have
No, I think that
strayed away. Yeah.
no, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was good. And
Yeah.
that is true. I know you mentioned right now that they're just being lazy about it and just giving license to everybody, and that makes sense. That I think that's more of a bigger risk right there because of that. Yeah,
It's a huge risk. You're allowing, you have no guardrails, no controls. You have no way to audit this information, right? And depending on the nature of your business, whether you work in healthcare or insurance, we work in insurance, we touch healthcare. Imagine somebody putting patient records or workers' compensation records or claims information. We deal with some pretty sensitive cases in terms of claims into something that's uncontrolled, that we have some business agreements with these companies, but we really don't know how that data pipeline is, what it's feeding. Once we send that data off to the AI provider, we have no record of what has happened, because most companies don't have good logging around AI. They don't know, or auditing about what is happening. It's very difficult for you to know that your employee had this conversation with a chat bot and produce this output, and that's why you're dealing with this problem. And so until those systems are in place, I think there's a lot of danger in deploying this widely. There are intelligent ways and strategies, and certainly starting with a very sensible AI policy in your environment is probably the first step.
yeah, and that's a little scary. Pretty much how the risk is out there. So like there's so much risk on AI, and we've already seen it. There's multiple articles. It's always being exposed. They're getting hacked. They're doing something, and the vulnerabilities are skyrocketing. And it seems like it's a normal thing now that AIs are getting hacked, instead of figuring out, like, hey, you know what, AI is not going to be hacked, but it's just it's commonly happening. I've even seen articles, companies like ServiceNow, huge companies are getting hacked about this. And I think even Anthropic actually got
Yeah,
hacked.
yeah,
That's the AI companies.
yeah, absolutely. I think hacking is one thing, but For sure, there's like malicious intent, and threat actors are using AI in the right way to become backers. So they have the right ideas. They're using AI to as a prosthesis of their own mental capabilities and becoming better threat actors, better hackers. They can build better shell code. They can, find vulnerabilities faster and exploit them faster. So that's definitely happening. And, that's what the warrior is around things like Mythos, right? We may have heard of Anthropic's model Mythos. And that's the warrior, is that people are going to get their hands on this and they're going to use it to find, previously unknown vulnerabilities in very critical infrastructure and, use that to exploit people and businesses. But that's one problem. And that is certainly a problem. But that's where all the focus is, right? The focus is there. Everybody's in their minds over Mythos and things. And that may or may not be true. It remains to be seen. I think today's models are plenty sufficient. The ones that everybody can get their hands on for $20 are pretty good at finding vulnerabilities anyway. So if somebody's really motivated, they don't really have to wait this release to do some of this stuff. They can do it with, just by downloading some open source LLMs from Hugging Face and start the process at least. It may be a little bit overblown, because if people can already do it today, this whole Mythos thing, what is it going to change, right? But I think the thing that people are really missing in security and cybersecurity as it pertains to AI is the unintended consequence, the operational, what's called bugs or poorly engineered systems that are just going to fall when we turn them on. And we're seeing a lot of that. And a lot of the outages from the big service providers like Amazon. And when you look at, the root cause of some of those things, it's either because somebody has checked in AI generated code, which has not been gone through a rigorous enough checking process, or they've provided some automation. They've provided some AI directed automation into systems that are critical and have something to do with keeping these systems online, and then those have failed miserably. And so I think a lot of these big companies that were first to try and put all this stuff into their ecosystem are learning the lessons, the hard lessons of what the real danger is. So to me, the real danger is operational, not necessarily some threat actor coming at you with a AI powered model or something like that. I think it's mostly self-inflicted injuries by moving too quickly with the desire to have fully autonomous systems, when I don't think we necessarily need that to see some productivity gains. If we had the right conceptual basis and we could train our employees to say, hey, this is not an agent. This is not an autonomous system. This is an extension of this is going to make you smarter. By using AI, you're going to be smarter because you're going to be able to use your cognitive functions and multiply that by using it to kind of expand working memory, do more analytics. As long as you have a self-directed goal, you can use AI and see huge productivity gains. Now, if you frame it like that, every company in this world, every individual in this world can improve themselves by using AI. But if you frame it in the fact that, like, I'm looking for an autonomous system that is going to be my assistant, that is going to do all the thinking for me, it's a house of cards waiting to fall down.
Okay, so that's scary. So it doesn't even have to be externally; it could just be internally with your own operations and everything.
Absolutely.
So that's a little scary right there.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest dangers is what your internal teams are going to come up with, and without actually realizing that they're going to, end up creating a monster inside the network, inside the environment. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's scary. So do you think the AI auditing and everything is going to be pretty much just going to skyrocket for any career paths?
So I think there's a couple of technologies that need to come online, and I've been writing about it. One of them is what I've been a proponent of, is the AI control. So we need a control plan. So the AI itself is just a token engine. I call it a token engine. And if we start looking at LLMs like engines, we're going to get further ahead. And so the AI is a token engine, but it needs an orchestration mechanism. It needs a way to control like an air traffic controller controls planes coming in for landing, you need a similar thing for AI agents and LLMs. So you need to be able to direct their paths, make sure that you log their traffic and see, well, who's interacting with this particular LLM. What was that interaction? What was the outcome of that interaction, right? And logging that information in a way that is recorded and tamper-proof is one of the use cases of an AI control play. The other is to apply some kind of deterministic policy on an indeterministic technology like an LLM. For instance, an LLM is a predictive model, but you have some pretty hard floors in terms of your security policy. You say, well, there's no wiggle room with your security policy. It is either this or that, right? It is either good or bad. And there are many examples of what could be good or bad. And if you leave it to the LLM, there's always a chance for some fuzziness. So you need a control plane, which is totally deterministic, that can take the input and then apply a policy to it, which is deterministic, has nothing to do with the language model itself, and either block or allow that traffic. So that's another aspect of the control plane, right? Then there are simply just routing and costs, right? So how do you keep a handle on costs, for instance? As we know, there's a new term emerging, and I like to think I coined it, or I don't know who. I'm sure many people have coined it, but I call it tokenomics. Okay, so tokenomics, I think, is a thing that's happening right now in the sense that tokens are starting to look a lot like AI currency in the sense that they have value. People want to get things done, accomplished with AI, and the price of tokens are going up. So every input token in and every output token you get out has a price from the AI providers. Unless you're running your own infrastructure, you're paying that price. And our regular use day to day, we don't really notice it. A lot of us pay subscription. So we have what we think is unlimited tokens, but we really don't. It's the heavy users, people who are developing applications or coding or doing heavy engineering work, that are coming up against these limits, which the AI providers impose. And if you want to go past those limits, you have to pay. And oftentimes you'll find people paying hundreds, thousands of dollars a month to keep going with their AI workloads, whatever they're doing with AI. And so it's starting to become an economic problem, and what I call tokenomics. And it can really shape the way that AI gets rolled out. Is if the price of these tokens keep going up, then you're going to see a slowdown in AI adoption and the way AI is used. If the token price comes down, then you'll see more proliferation of AI into the world. And certainly once we get to a point where we've got agents working for us, the amount of tokens they use far surpasses the amount that you normally use in a chat. So the tokenomics is going to become more and more important and more of a discussion to be had. And so the control plane that you build has to have that in mind. Like, how do I control costs here? When do I use my on-premises open source model? And when do I use the frontier model from Anthropic or Google or OpenAI? Because this is a complex task that I need the best possible model, and I'm going to pay the full price for it. And when am I going to say, well, this is an easy question, I'm just going to give it to my local LLM and not pay the freight? And so you need some kind of routing mechanism to do that. A control plane will help. So there is a number of use cases that I just mentioned there that the control plane should facilitate. But that, I think, is one of the core pieces of infrastructure that needs to be in place before you start deploying LLMs en masse. And one of those reasons is for your own sovereignty, your own data sovereignty, and your own ability for your business not to be beholden to an AI provider. Because if you can choose which AI you want to query, then it doesn't matter if Anthropic goes offline or is too expensive. You can switch to Google on the fly, or you can switch to OpenAI on the fly, or you can switch to an assist model on the fly. But if you don't have those mechanisms in place, you're stuck, and that's not a good place for your business to be. And yeah, see that is the problem that people are causing by just buying everybody Copilot licenses or ChatGPT licenses. They're not really thinking about, well, how do I get myself out of this problem in the future, right? And so yeah, that's a warning sign, a red flag for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about like a good point of view. Cloud or something goes down, and now you're just kind of stuck with you have. So yeah,
Or they just raise the price. They raise the price and
raise
hold
the
you for
price up.
ransom, right? They're like,
Yeah,
well, yeah, you're gonna pay up if you want to use our service. And certainly they'll have their own costs as hardware cost goes up, as they have to build more and more data centers. It comes fundamentally down to energy use. These models use an incredible amount of energy. And so somebody has to pay the freight for that energy. Right now, there isn't enough use to really hit up our energy grid's capacity. But in the future, as this scales out, we're going to really start hitting up against the capacity of the grid. And once that happens, the price has to go up.
yeah, and that's true. It's and that's the thing. They just keep you kind of hostage about that about it. They have the power to raise their price anytime they want. So now they want you to depend too much on it. And after that, it's we can charge you whatever you want. We want
That's right.
$400, $1,000.
As I said, no, the first one's always free, right?
Yeah, they
Right.
try to get you like that.
That's right. Get you hooked. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the AI game it can be summed to that. It's like they want to get you hooked. Right.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a sales pitch. It's try to get you something free, then after that, they get you more and more and more.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's
Absolutely.
interesting. Really
Absolutely.
interesting. And I know you mentioned about the operational side, and I know you're starting this organization, the AI SOC. Can you tell me more about the operational? Because I know I think that's a really good foundation right now, or a good point of view that you mentioned that. Can you tell me more about the AI SOC? I know
Yeah.
we've been talking about it, but can you give
To
me
be part of it, we're bringing you along into this because we're just starting it up, and it's this discussion that we've been having, right? We need to be able to have a discussion like this with operators, not with vendors, not with people trying to sell us AI products. We just need to be objectively speaking as operators and security operators and technology operators in a community to have conversations about what does AI really look like in our environments? How can we deploy it in a way that suits our businesses, suits our needs, not the needs of AI providers and vendors, right? So right now is conversation is driven by vendors, by AI providers, and by venture capital firms that want to start AI companies, right? And that's where the conversation is. And that's where the conversation is ending. And so you're only getting one side of the story, and you're not really getting the best side of the story because they're really geared towards selling you a product. Okay. And they're not looking at, well, what does the business really need? They're just selling you what they've jumped in at. A lot of the stories about AI companies today is they jumped in to the river, the flowing stream at a certain point, and they're going with that, right? Instead of saying, let me hold on and see what this really looks like and build a business around that. They jumped in like 6 months ago. They're talking about AI gateways, and 2 months from now, they'll be talking about something else without fully crystallizing what it is that the market needs because everything's still in flux. Everything's still being developed, right? We still don't have really agents that can do anything meaningful in our environment, not autonomously. And so how can you build a technology around something that hasn't really been crystallized yet, right? And so that's what this AI SOC is about, is getting community together to talk about these things, let the ideas crystallize before we jump into something and just having that forum. And so the reason and a lot of these things probably have a forum already in San Francisco and in Silicon Valley, but we're in Sacramento. We're in the Sacramento Valley. And I think there's a lot of people interested, like myself and you and others that we know in our communities. And they're interested in not missing this gold rush and getting in and understanding with some depth what's going on. But there isn't really a community or forum for them to voice their ideas or come together. And so that's what this is, the AI, we call it the AI Security Operators Council. And it's about operators, not about vendors and not about sales pitches or anything like that. It's about people talking about real problems and trying to solve those real problems. And that's the hope. And so we've got some initial interest. We're starting as a LinkedIn group. And as that grows, we may grow it something a little deeper. And, certainly the story is just beginning.
Yeah, that's true. That all this stuff is all in the Bay Area. In Sacramento, we're not known as the tech city or
Yeah, we are a growing city and we have a lot of talent. One of my objectives is to find that talent, bring it together, and really incubate Sacramento as a hub for AI technologies. And that is one of my personal goals, if you will.
yeah, and it's definitely possible because we both been in the community. You'll be more your community, but I've already seen the expansion, the growth of everybody in the AI, the cybersecurity. It's just been huge over here in Sacramento. It's not as big as the Bay Area, but it is a good community, a good amount of community.
Absolutely.
And this is something they
Absolutely.
haven't even promoted. Now if it's well, not even promoted, it's never been established in Sacramento. So now there's an establishment. I think the community will slowly come in, just knowing the fact that there's something now that we can build something together. And it's like you just said, it's more of a community. It's not the pitches, it's not the sales vendors, it's nothing related like that. It's nothing related to let's sell you a service. It's more of a community based. And that's awesome that you're bringing that to the table over here in Sacramento because that's what we really need. We needed something like that. And you're bringing something valuable to Sacramento. And I know a lot of people are going to be appreciative of this.
Oh yeah, so thank you for that word of support because you're going to be part of that. I think you're part of that story as well, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It is one of my passion projects for the near term. In fact, I'm putting aside some of my other commitments so I can focus in on this. So yeah, I think it's going to be great.
That's awesome. And I know you're still fresh into it. Do you see more people coming in, more like CIOs, CISOs, CTOs coming into the picture? Do you even think? I even think personally, I think that some Bay Area people will come over here just
Yeah.
to get the exploration, just to understand how things are moving. Because
It's not we're not building exclusive to Sacramento. We're simply providing a platform and a forum in this town, in this city, because of locality issues, right? Because not everybody wants to drive to San Francisco, and I find myself driving to San Francisco far too often to engage in these discussions because I don't want to miss out. I want to be part of the discussion. I want to talk to people. I want to, learn more and exchange ideas. But that's a long commute. It takes a lot out of me and takes me away from my. There are a lot of like-minded people in the Sacramento area that want to have conversations and trade ideas. And we just need a place here to do it. And so that's really the point. It's not to exclude anybody else. All are welcome. If you're coming from San Francisco, we certainly welcome that because you're bringing that wealth of knowledge from San Francisco to come and share with us. So, it's not something, we're not in competition or we're not trying to be exclusive here.
and that's good that you clarify that too, because
Yeah.
we can see it like chapters pretty much. They be like, oh, it's Sacramento chapter is more of Sacramento
Sure.
base, or
Sure.
there's a Bay Area chapter, is just Bay Area. So that's good that you're bringing that into all. Like, there's no exclusion. It's pretty much everybody can come in,
Right.
everybody's welcome. And with this video, I'll also put the link in the below so everybody can see which one's the area, which one's the link. It's people can join. And I think that value is going to be very good for everybody from the entry levels to the mid levels to the C levels to business owners, CEOs. I think it's going to be a great community. Do you think?
I think it's important. It's going to be good for people who are new entrants into the field because as we're part of a organization, ISACA, and we deal with new grads who come in and they're trying to find their way. And a lot of the conversations I have with them is, how do I get in? What do I do now? Right, with AI coming online, this is the kind of organization or what we're talking about, the AI SOC, is the kind of community you want to start joining because A, you're going to learn a lot. B, you're going to refocus your thoughts to the new paradigm that's coming on, which is AI, and how as a technologist, do I adopt AI, and what are the the leaders in this field saying about technology adoption and AI adoption, and how is that going to play out? So you learn firsthand for people, which you can't learn in a university or a classroom setting right now because it's just too new. It's happening in real time. the universities are 2 or 3 years behind the curve in like, actually, implementing this stuff in the real world. So, I advise the university on industry standards. And so I know, and I worked previously for a university. So I know where they are, on the curve, and not to discount the value of a university education, but in the world of AI, things are moving so quickly that the only way you can really stay current is to talk amongst your peers and have a forum where you can go and change ideas and converse. If you're just starting out, that's going to be great. If you're mid-career, it's going to be great. It's going to help you solidify your ideas. And if you're a leader, it's going to be great because you're going to be able to share your ideas and find the right pool of people to bring along with you in your organizations to help you implement this stuff. So I think it's great for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And like you're 100% right about that. Not to talk bad about the universities or anything like that, but I know University Resource already has a structure and how designed the study programs and everything. But how AI is moving so quick that yesterday's technology is already old. And that's the
Right.
insane part about
Right.
AI.
Right.
That's it's so many things going on. I'm looking into AI and they were like, hey, they talk about something and I don't know, or the next day, or they already say, "Oh, that's old already. Don't even worry about that." Like
Right.
ChatGPT, the new thing in the beginning. Now ChatGPT is nobody really wants to talk about her. Nobody really
Sure.
wants to
Or
mess.
everybody knows it's a byword. Like, so it's like for AI, right? Is ChatGPT. But what does that really mean? Right? There's hundreds of models today, hundreds of trained AI models that you can choose from. How do you know which one's the best? Unless you're in a community, I'm part of many communities. Unless you're in a technical community where you can have conversations with people, how do you know what works and what doesn't work? There's no real reference. And I think the industry, if you go and buy a service, they're often selling you something. So you're not getting the truth. You're getting a spit, unfortunately, though you're paying for it. And so we're looking for, a forum of technical readers that can come together and have conversations frankly and objectively.
And that's good about the organization you're doing too, because it's not something that a vendor will come in and it was like, hey, let me present you this awesome AI, this awesome solution. Now this is more of a community. Everybody already explored what's working, what's not working, and what was their flaws. And I think that's a huge part of the community that you're building. I think it's awesome that you're gonna bring that to the table to the people, just because now you're getting real information, just a sales pitch, not a marketing pitch out there. Now you're getting real information like the community you mentioned, and bring that
Right.
community to Sacramento will be awesome because AI, it's everywhere. It doesn't, there's no section that's just, okay, let's just the Bay Area. No, it's all over the place where everybody's using it, everybody's implementing it. The risk is out there. So you bringing this to the table is awesome. What would you see in the future of your organization right now for ASOC? What would you see? What would you see if in the 5 years? Do you see more building a bigger community with everybody, going to different places? Do you see events
Yeah,
coming up?
yeah. I mean, I'm not looking that far ahead. I think what the need today is just community and conversation and getting people together. So we're starting with a LinkedIn group. Once we grow that LinkedIn group sufficiently, we'll have in-person events and we'll have people come and talk and share ideas. But beyond that, we build a nonprofit around it, a true nonprofit around it, and get a board together and all the things that come with that, and then maybe take it to a level, right? If the conversation grows to that magnitude, then we can take it where it goes. But that's all depends on where the conversation goes and how that goes. But right now, the need for me, at least, is to have conversations with others, and that's why we built this to do that.
And that's awesome that you also brought that up. And I know that I know you have it also like articles that you mentioned about AI articles. I know it's not much. It's not. I'm not trying to say more of a promotional aspect of
Right.
it. It's
Right.
because I'm looking at it more as you're providing some good insight. I've read some articles, and I think it's really awesome you bringing into these articles into the people to fully understand how things are
Right.
going and implementing the ASOC in your articles. And I believe if you get other people in the articles, that'd be great to
Yeah.
have these things.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own Substack, and I do it mostly to put my ideas down, right? So I have these ideas in my head and put them down and start the conversation. It's not necessarily that I care that much that everybody in the world reads Substack, so it's not a promotional thing. I probably have like 5 subscribers. I don't know, but what I want is to put my ideas down. I believe they're relevant and put them there for people to reference them and access them when needed. And I think that's the impetus. I have this feeling of creativity right now in this age of AI. It's given me this new spurt of energy, which I'm now, focusing into building things, writing, and, now this AI SOC, building a community around it. So I think it's just part of the journey, like we discussed, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and the journey is gonna be awesome, man. I can already see it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
It has been awesome. It is awesome, and it will be awesome. And I'm not saying that it's been rosy and I've been a smile the whole way through it, but that is all part and parcel of the journey.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be part of it, man. I'll be happy. I'll be on everything, and what we could do, we can definitely build up something. So it's something that I believe that what you're bringing into the table is something that we all needed. We all needed it. We go through different chapters to figure it out, this type of information, but we never had anything dedicated to it. And
Sure.
you having that dedication into it is perfect for everybody in the community.
Sure. Yeah, we did that with ISACA. We'll do it again with AI SOC as well. So it's just the same thing. Build a community, bring them together, and it'll all take care of itself. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome. And anything else you want to mention before we cut this?
Yeah, thank you for getting me on here. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, and we've been on and off, and finally found a time to come together and do it. And I'm just really proud of the way you've grown this thing, right? This is like a real thing that I see everywhere. You were at RSA and all this stuff, and it's like, this is awesome, man. This is really great. So it's great to be on with you. I wanted to do that. And I'm looking forward to growing other things with you. So yeah, thank you for having me on. My Substack, because we mentioned it, I'll give you the name. It's called The Prompt Perimeter. People can find it if they want. Again, I'm not trying to push it. So it's a reference for people who are interested.
Come on, Mo, you're too humble. You gotta, yeah.
Yeah.
I think having that type of content, I know you're not trying to promote it as much. You're not
Sure.
advertising it, but the way that the content that you're providing is very valuable. It's not something that it has to be promoted, but it's going to be it's going to stand out because it's something that people really do need.
I hope. Otherwise, I'm writing for nothing. So yeah.
Nah, never that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mo, again. I appreciate it. Appreciate everything. I know we've been going back and forth on this for almost half a year. It's been a year.
Yeah. So I'm finally glad that we got it done. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you were going to be my first or second guest. Now
How many guests have you had since then? A lot, right?